Petty revenge. Racist neighbors. We purchased our first home a few years ago. We quickly learned the immediate next-door neighbors hold, shall we say, antiquated opinions about race. The wife introduced herself on moving day and used the occasion to warn us the Oriental couple across the street does not maintain their lawn. Okay, minimal interaction with them after that, until a few months later, when the old curmudgeon husband apparently had too much to drink and felt empowered to share his true feelings across the fence. You and your colored wife should move back to California. I informed him in colorful language, I'm not from California. I'm actually from New York. Here's how you can tell. My colored wife informed him she was born in the city we currently live in. No apology. Not even enough self-awareness to blush. He takes insane pride in his yard garden. I think it's the only reason he has to leave his couch. Every single time we pluck a mature dandelion, we walk over to the property line and blow the seeds in his direction. 3 years in and half his garden, plus a goodly portion of his lawn, is now dandelions. Petty revenge. I just spam called my year-long spam caller. I recently scam called my scam callers and it got them to stop. They were calling 10-15 times a day, each time spoofing a US-based location, and had the exact same voicemail, which has caused me to need to delete my entire voicemail inbox 3x weekly for at least a year. Extremely frustrating. So many calls during work meetings, important moments with friends, etc. Every single time, the same voicemail message, "This is Jennifer from the senior underwriting team, calling about your loan." I found Reddit post about this specific scam, and in one comment a guy claimed to have scam called them back, and it got them to stop. So I decided, what the heck, let me see if this works. I called, put myself on mute, and hung up after 5-10 seconds of them talking. I did this exactly 266 times in 35 minutes. Each time to the same number, I cycled through 20-30 employees with accents from Australia to India to mid-Atlantic, at least 3 different company names they claimed to be from, and many scripts. Sometimes they'd start one script, then mess up and start on another. Other times, they'd just say hello. The best was when they changed mid-script what company they were claiming to be from. Then sometimes they'd say, "Hello, Mr. Boop." After about 150 calls, I started getting intermittently hung up on immediately after they answered the call. I knew I was getting to them. Finally, at call 260, I reached the final fucking boss. In a deep mob boss-type voice, I hear, "And I kid you not, Mr. Boop, you've got to stop with these spam calls. I mean, seriously, you got to have something better to do with your time. This happened Thursday and I'm still riding the high. Edit. Oh yeah, and they have not called me back." Petty revenge. Hidden garbage can. My fence is 22 inches from the property line. My neighbor's driveway is also 22 inches from the property line. In between the fence and the driveway is 44 inches of grass. About 2 weeks ago, while I was cutting the grass, the neighbor asked if I would do that whole section. He said that he would get it next time. Well, the next time was 2 days ago Wednesday, and he only did his half. When I asked him about it, he told me to pound sand. Friday is trash day. He put out his overflowing can this morning, and after he left, I parked my car front of his can so that the waste management team wouldn't see it. Sure enough, they skipped it. He now has an overflowing can and nowhere to put his trash for 1 more week. Petty revenge. Sit in my seat and refuse to move. Enjoy being uncomfortable. Last week, I took a flight from Athens, where I'd been visiting relatives, to London. It was a late flight, I was exhausted, and the plane was full. I was in a window seat, which I'd chosen so I could rest my head against the walls and sleep. But when I got to my row, there was a guy in my seat. He had big headphones on and had his head turned away from me. I try telling him that he's in my seat. He doesn't respond, thinking maybe he can't hear me because of the headphones, so I gently tap him on the shoulder. No reaction. I try again. Still nothing. He doesn't even turn towards me, edited to add that he's clearly not asleep. He's sitting upright and I can see his eyes are open. I considered calling over a flight attendant to ask him to move, but there isn't one nearby and I'm not in the mood for it to be a whole thing. So I just take the middle seat and quietly fume. A few minutes later, the young woman who is sitting in the aisle seat arrives and takes her seat. She is traveling with her friend, who is sitting in the window seat in the row behind us. They are talking to each other across their seats. Then the woman sitting in the aisle seat turns to me and asks if I can swap with her friend so they can sit together. I say sure, no problem. Now, at this point, it is important to point out that her friend is very fat. Borderline obese, not fat shaming. I'm a heavy guy myself, but she is at least twice as wide as me. I probably would have swapped even if she hadn't been fat, but I saw a chance at revenge. As I get up to move, I see the guy sitting in my seat has turned around and realized what is about to happen. He doesn't look happy and gives me a look like he's saying, "Please don't move." I ignore him and swap seats. I spent the flight mostly with my eyes closed as I try and fail to get a nap. But I do occasionally have a look at the row in front of me, and I am very satisfied to see that the fat woman in front of me is taking up nearly half of the window seat as well as her own seat, and that the guy in my seat is squashed up against the wall of the plane. I hope he spent the flight thinking about how, if he'd just taken his own seat, he'd have been able to swap with the fat woman, and I'd have been the one pinned against the wall. Maybe next time he will think twice before he takes someone else's seat. Petty revenge. Help at the dock. This happened about 15 years ago. A friend of ours worked at a swanky bar that had a dock and boat rental on a lake full of million PKU's dollar waterfront homes. Mid-week boat rentals were free for him, so we packed a boat full of friends and beer. A few hours in it was past time to relieve the pressure of all the beers we consumed, so off to the dock at his work. We docked and everyone left me to watch the boat, while waiting a couple pull up to the dock in a beautiful wooden speedboat. The gentleman driving was having a hard time as it was windy and he kept drifting away from the dock. Seeing this, I jumped up on the dock and asked him for his rope, which he tossed without saying a word. I tried his boat off at the dock and he says, "You know most people would move their boat to the windward side so others could dock easier." In a rather mean snark. I looked at him with a questioning expression, bent over, united his boat, and threw his rope in the water. His boat now turned off, and drifting in the wind I hear his wife say, "Why do you always have to be an a-hole?" I sat back in the boat with a smile as he cussed and struggled for the next 10 minutes. Moral of the story is don't bite the hand that feeds you. Petty revenge. A special gift for a neighbor who insulted me and my dog. I 44F live in an upper-middle-class neighborhood that's pretty vast. 75 or so homes, built between 70s and 90s. No HOA, but a neighborhood association and Crime Watch org, neither of which I am a part of. We purchased the home in 21. Everyone we've met have been very friendly for the most part. My children are teenagers, so we haven't explored much of our neighborhood. We often see other people that I assume live elsewhere, park in front of my home or near it, to walk our neighborhood as well. A couple of years ago, we adopted a puppy. I checked out the distance of the bordering streets of our neighborhood, one of which our home sits on, and found it is 3.20 miles. So walking the outer edges of the neighborhood became my normal dog walking route. A few weeks ago, our local park was closed for renovations. So I began exploring all the connecting streets inside my neighborhood to give him new things to see and smell. This, of course, gave opportunity to meet new neighbors. I have in earbuds on walks, so it's mostly simple pleasantries, sometimes a quick conversation. It's been largely lovely until a couple of days ago. Walking in about the middle of a new street we had not been on before. There isn't much through traffic. I noticed a 60-ish M in his yard by his garage. I gave a cursory smile and wave, but noticed he was speaking. Taking my earbud out as I walked towards his yard, I asked what was that. He replied, "Keep your dog off my grass." I was a little shocked by the rudeness and tone, so I replied with a sort of giggle, "He wasn't near your grass, but okay." I'm shaking my head, walking away. Louder now, he yells, "I don't give a goddamn, it's my grass and I don't want the fucker on it." I was almost too stunned to speak, but I managed, "Well, I don't wanted strange bloated men barking orders at me, so when he shits in your yard, you can say something, until then go fuck yourself." I'm walking fast, calling my husband, completely enraged. I was literally carrying a bag of crap in my hand because I'm not an asshole and I pick up after my dog. I'm about 2 streets over when I see a black Suburban creeping past a stop sign. It's him. I recognized it from his driveway. He's speeding up to me, I think to run me or my dog over. We hop into someone's yard off the curb. He speeds by and yells, "Fuck you, bitch," while giving me his fat red finger out of the window. Now I'm smoking with anger. My dog is confused, but he just let me know that no one is home at his house. I circled back and opened my steaming bag in the center of his driveway, being careful to gauge where his tires would hit. It was a heavy load too, about 4 turds. But it wasn't enough. I'm still angry. I go home, look up his address, find his name, socials, all that. His birthday is in 2 days. I smile because I know I'll have a special present for him. I called my most unhinged friend that happens to have 2 dogs. She's happy to collect samples for me. At home, I do the same, and in 2 days' time, have a right pile of shit from 3 dogs. I purchased a manila envelope, grabbed some Easter crinkle confetti paper, and some gloves to get working his birthday present. I'm sure to grab the envelopes with bubble wrap on the inside. I address it to him and write "Happy Birthday" in large letters. Underneath, stuff it with dog shit and fill just the top with enough crinkle paper that it's hard to see what's inside. I walk it alone to his home on his birthday and put it in his paper box very early. Then I come back at mail time and wait on the nearest cross street, hidden. I see him come out directly after the mail truck. He grabs my manila envelope. Yes! I can taste the revenge on my tongue. I'm about to walk the opposite direction home, but I see him opening the envelope. A front row seat. This is beautiful. He is halfway up his driveway when I hear "what the fuck" followed by "God damn it to hell" as he trying to fling shit from his hand. I start running. I know he was going to instinctively look around. I'm out of there. My heart was jackhammering in my chest. I'm out on a main road before I slow down to a normal walk and made it back home without incident. This was 2 days ago, and I haven't quit laughing since, and I think I'm satisfied, for now anyway. Thanks for reading ETA Dog Tax post link in comments. Petty revenge. My extremely tiny and petty, legally blonde moment. My 3-year odyssey of spite finally came together yesterday. When I was a fresh college grad in 2022 21F at the time, I dated an attorney for about 3 months, 27 mem. He was a talented lawyer, spoke lucidly about what he did for work, and I trusted his opinions about the legal profession. So, after I finished a postgrad internship, I told him my real postgrad aspiration was to get a job at a law firm, as a paralegal and work as one until I was ready to apply for law school. He literally scoffed at me and told me I would be better off as a court clerk. I don't mean to harp on court clerks at all. It is a very difficult job, but it is more administrative in nature, and from the way he said it, it was exceedingly clear he meant the comment to be derogatory. He didn't elaborate on why he said this, but it was implied. I was taken aback and really fucking hurt, but at 21 I hadn't learned to have a spine yet, so I brushed it off. A few weeks later, I was working my first paralegal job. We broke up shortly after, for reasons I'm sure you can guess. Anyway, he was right that I'm not going to be a paralegal. I took my LSAT last fall, scored in the 98th percentile, sent out my apps, committed to UC Berkeley Law yesterday, ranked about 90 spots above his law school, but who's counting? And I'm going to become a lawyer. He is currently blocked on LinkedIn after I was the recipient of some profile creeping from him. But today I'm going to unblock him so he can see. Definitely reminiscent of the scene from Legally Blonde, where she gets the prestigious internship. Remember those hours we spent in the hot tub on spring break? Well, this is so much better. Edit, I'm blown away by the number of kind comments this post has received. Thank you so much for sharing in my pettiness. I hope you're all achieving your dreams too. Petty revenge. Ignore me for being a woman? Enjoy your sales being cut? English is not my first language, and my life is boring, but I'm petty. Please feel free to correct me on any misspellings, grammar issues. TLDR, misogynistic salesman ignores women. I convince my boss to buy far less than he would. Long version. I work at a small shop that employs only my boss owner, 40s M, Asian and I 20s F, local. I've worked there for a few years, edit 6 years. I'm the only one to last longer than 2 months on the job, understandable. The place is a mess and the job is quite physical. But hours are flexible and I get along with the owner, so it's okay. I know all the salespeople, remember most of the customers, and know almost exactly what we have. At all times, my boss doesn't keep track of what we have. Add to that my boss's lack of understanding of how things are often done here in the country, and in this specific town area, and a language barrier that should have disappeared by now. 20 years after him coming to this country, but he never made an effort, and that's an advantage for me. There's this older 60s guy that's been selling us gas-related products lately, edit few months. He seems nice to my boss, says hello and makes small talk with male customers. But I've noticed him ignoring me and any non-male customers. I've made it a point to say hi, introduce myself, but he ignored me and talked over me, focusing only on my boss. He'd even interrupt when I needed to communicate something job-related. acting like his sales were more important than us actually running the shop. Big mistake on his part. Now my pettiness started small, making a point to be louder when greeting him, like he was losing his hearing. Subtle jabs around women when he ignored them or tried to redirect boss's attention to him instead of the customers who needed his help. But at some point I had enough. The biggest perk of controlling like 90% of the shop myself is that I know how much space we have, what people ask for, and what we have. Most shop customer interactions fall on me, so it's on me to offer products or alternatives. And this guy is a small fish in a big sea of other fish. I started suggesting my boss buys most of what this guy tries to sell to our other suppliers instead. And what the guy has that others don't, or any new things, I convince him to buy less. To give a few examples, this guy always offers new products and tries to get my boss to buy at least 3-5 to see how they do. I keep making my boss buy only one because the salesman shows up every month anyway. Or if I know people haven't been asking about that product or are okay with an alternative, I tell him not to buy it. There are some gas cans we get at about the same price from another supplier, so I tell him to get it from the other guys who deliver to us bi-weekly and bring other stuff too, which makes it easier to us, more frequent deliveries, less chances for the stuff to break, and we have no storage area, so everything has to go on, under the shelves. So we can't buy much more than we can fit there. I know it's not very exciting, but watching his face fall to disappointment when I discourage my boss, or to annoyance, anger, discomfort when I'm around is very satisfying. And to make it a bigger point, whenever he actually acknowledges me from the start and is not a prick to women, I don't push back as much, or you wampus fails. Thanks for the correction in comments. I'll even let my boss know we're low on something. This guy shouldn't be in sales. He still hasn't made the be nice to the lady to sell more connection in his head just yet. He might retire without making it, but at that point it will no longer be my problem. Petty revenge. I held the door for an entitled douche, so I dropped it when his girl was exiting too. A short, quick story. I was exiting McDonald's and held the door because my relatives were also exiting, noticed someone else was going to exit. So I held it for a brief moment. This entitled dude didn't even bat an eye or even said thank you, but just walked with an entitled demeanor, hands inside pocket and all that. Before I get to drop the door on him, he had already walked past me, but his girlfriend, who was glued to her phone, was literally behind him. So I dropped the door, and it slammed on her. She dropped her phone and yelled at him, "You didn't hold the door." I stared as he tried to help his girl. Sorry for the girl who had to experience that, but I had to make the dude feel hurt, even just a little. Petty revenge. Rude business owner refused to dispose of hazardous waste. About 30 years ago, I worked as a property manager at a commercial industrial building. There was a gentleman who operated a machine shop from one of the warehouses in the back. He occupied the space for decades before I got involved, and as far as knew, he was respectful, friendly, and always paid the rent on time. The trouble began when he decided to retire and close the business. It took several days to move, but when it seemed to be vacant, I entered the space to assess the condition of the unit. Initially, what was left was typical A desk filled with miscellaneous office supplies, a couple of broken chairs, and some trash here and there, but in the corner, there was a large steel drum of used compressor oil. The barrel could hold about 210 liters, 55 gallons, but was half full. Nevertheless, this type of material has to be disposed of in a proper manner. There are services that collect used oil, but at a significant cost. At this time, he still had a company van parked outside with a flat tire, so I thought surely he will be back soon to get it along with the barrel of oil. Another week had passed, so I decided to give him a call. He gave some excuses, but said he would take care of it soon. Of course, nothing happened. A couple of more weeks, a couple more calls until finally he snapped, told me to fuck off, and hung up. That's when I decided it was time to get petty. I had noticed that his van had been left unlocked and was virtually empty, so I got a colleague to help, and together we managed to get the barrel into the van. We then threw the desk, the broken chairs, and the trash in there too. I then called a friend of mine who is a cop to give the gentleman a courtesy call, informing him that he had 48 hours to move his van, or it would be towed. The very next day, he was there with a tow truck he hired to collect the van. I didn't speak to him, but some other tenants who knew him told me he was very upset. They suggested my solution was extreme and unwarranted, but I maintained that I was very patient with him until he crossed the line. Petty revenge. My junior high bully ended up massaging my butt. So I-55F was having issues with my sciatic nerve and made an APPT for a massage. My usual therapist was on vacation, so I had someone new. Let's call her Sarah, which is a pretty common name. She was great and did a great job. No complaints about her skill. But I couldn't shake the feeling I knew her. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. We did the usual question thing. Do you live around her? Where did you go to school, etc., and didn't come up with a common denominator because we only went back as far as high school. I should also explain that she didn't recognize me, nor my name, because when I was in school, I went by my nickname, and as an adult I was using my full married name. So instead of D. Jones, I was Diane Smith, so there was no way for her to recognize my name. When I was in junior high, there were two girls who were best friends and absolute bullies to me for some reason. Let's call them Sarah and Donna. I'd get shoved, hit, punched, and worse, and more than once had books knocked out of my arms. Teachers never did anything, and my years at the junior were miserable. Fortunately, we ended up at different high schools. Back to my massage. When the massage was over, I got dressed and went to pay. That's when I saw the receipt with her last name on it. Sarah Brown, and it all fell into place. Sarah came out to check on me and hand me a bottle of water and told me to soak in the tub with Epsom salts. I wasn't going to say anything. It was such a long time ago, but I couldn't help myself. She had traumatized me. So I said, "So Sarah, I just saw your last name in the receipt and realized where I know you from. When you and Donna were terrorizing me in ABC Junior High, did it ever cross your mind that you would one day me massaging my ass?" Then I told her you would have known me as D. Jones back then. Give my love to Donna. And walked out, leaving her with a stunned look on her face. I know it was petty, but I couldn't help myself. And I tell the story to everyone, LOL. Edit, someone just called me out in my age. Forgive me. I lurk but don't post often, so I apparently didn't follow protocol. I read a story here earlier that reminded me of this event. What I should have said was, I'm 62F and this happened a few years ago. Instead, I mistakenly gave my age at the time the event happened. Sorry for the confusion. Petty revenge. Beep your horn at my mother, get mildly inconvenienced. My mother 60s was putting shopping bags into the side door of her car whilst in a car park. While doing this, a lady 20s who was parked diagonally in front of her started driving slowly towards her, crossing the midline of the spaces. She then honked her horn and wafted her hands at my mother, indicating for her to get out of the way. Obviously, this annoyed my mother, who just shook her head and continued putting shopping away. The lady then honked again and shouted out the window to move your trolley, I don't like reversing. Again, my mother continued putting away her shopping, as the lady had more than enough space to reverse out, as there were no cars beside or behind her. By the time my mother had finished putting away the shopping, the lady honked a third time. So my mother left the shopping cart in front of the lady's car, quickly got into her own car and drove away smiling. Glancing in the rear view as the angry lady had to get out of her car to move the trolley away, great success. Petty revenge. Mess with my kids and find out the $buy truck. Thank you for the support I have received since I posted it yesterday. I've always been embarrassed by this story and the possibility of stress. I caused the family by trying to avoid confrontation, but to hear now that I wasn't in the wrong has been very stress relieving. I-34F have lived in a very nice part of conservative Oregon State for 5 years, and this is not an easy state to be accepted when you're a family of 4 M38, kids 10 M7F from OC SoCal. It's like we have been transported to another planet. And shout out to parents, it's been awful dealing with the staring parents at the school bus stops. Oh my God. They stare at my style, hair and tattoos like I'm an alien. I refuse to wear leggings, so it's like they take that as a personal insult. I've always avoided the lot of them and kept a polite distance, get my kids and bail. But there was one mom that was like the leader. I even heard her say once, "Yeah, I'm the neighborhood mom. In case blah blah." She drove her husband's huge truck and thought she was the shit, revving it up and down the street. Our apartment complex, all the families that wait at this stop live here, was within eyesight. It was so close. I walked every day to teach my kids to not be lazy and to not be afraid of the weather. I always kept my distance, but what made my skin crawl is the woman couldn't park the truck. It was the first in-person school year since COVID, and she was parking on the sidewalk directly in front of the corner that the bus pulled up to. I was the only parent that walked each day despite the weather. On one particular day, there was snow on the ground. She and one of the other creeper moms were sitting in the truck with the windows down. So I actually stopped and said, "Hey, do you mind not parking on the sidewalk? It's hard to get by completely calm, just a passing comment." She immediately responds with, "I drive a big truck. Deal with it." I was not expecting that reaction at all. Her friend was closest to me on the passenger side, frantically trying to roll up the windows. But at the last couple inches, I come out of shock and say, "Then learn how to drive it." Then walk away. The next day, I walk up the sidewalk, and there she is in the rain, now blocking the sidewalk. I call the non-emergency police line, and they said they will keep an eye on the corner for afternoon drop-off. When the afternoon comes, there is a black Tesla sitting there with grey lettering that says police. Truck bitch pulls up on the sidewalk, not seeing him. She's bumping 2000s techno and has kids jumping around. He walks over and talks to her and leaves. I then get a call from the officer to offer some comfort, I guess. He gave her a ticket for driving with kids not in their seatbelts and gave her a warning for parking on the sidewalk, forcing people to go around her into the street on the icy ground. He told me to call him again if she keeps doing it and to stay away from her. She's an angry person. I don't see her till the next week. Guess where she parks? I call the officer's direct marshal he had given, and he comes within minutes pulling right along her truck. All the parents are staring. But I do notice that the friend that had been in the truck is now staring at me. I stared straight at the street ahead of me, praying for the bus to appear because I was trying not to laugh. I have always left these women alone, kept my distance. It's been a couple years now. One of their sons even went up to my son and told him, "Did you know your mom is a bad person?" I never did anything, never approached the parents. I ignored it and used it as a lesson for my son. Now I found out how far her new tickets have added up to. She racked up $800 in tickets. She hasn't gone to the bus stop since. I eventually figured out she does still live here. I haven't seen her at the bus stop since the second cop interactions. I see her driving around. Now she drives an ugly little gold Honda. I'm the last person that wants to fuck with you. But if you won't stop, what can I do? Update the story of the truck. After the final ticket, she stopped showing up at the bus stop. But I eventually figured out that she still lives here because she drives by every day in the morning and in the afternoon. Because her kids still go to the same school and she's on the same schedule. I see her on the same driving schedule and she stares at me over her shoulder, but I don't know how she could know. I had any effect on the situation. This year, 2025, I have seen her at school events with a new man, so I don't think the husband just took the truck away on time out. I think the husband left her at some point and literally took the truck away with him. Add on, keep in mind that I did not call anybody to report her driving with kids hanging out of her truck or in the back of the truck. I only called to see if they would keep an eye on the bus stops because in the bad weather people were parked in the sidewalk. I didn't report her license plate or anybody specific, so the day that she rolled up with the kids all over the truck, the cop went up to her on his own. And she argued with the cops, yelling that she does this all the time. The kids weren't even hers. She was doing carpool. The reason she was at the bus stop was to pick up her kids that take the bus with my kids. Petty revenge. Don't cut in the line. There we are waiting on the long-ass line for an amusement park ride, and there is this woman sneakily cutting in. First, I thought she was with her family, and she was just gone briefly to fetch some water or something, while the rest of her party was in the line, but it also didn't look like it. She was seemingly glued to her phone and pushing others every now and then to get to front a few kids at a time. A lot of kids on the line, and she didn't look like she was looking for someone she knows in the line. While she was trying to pass by me, I told her, "Miss, the line starts over there." She pretended to not hear me and kept moving and cut in front of me, and then I tapped her on the shoulder and said the same thing again quietly. She stared at me and just stood there, stopped trying to get to the front, but also did nothing to move to the back. So I tapped her on the shoulder once again and said the same thing, this time loud enough to get others to hear. She huffed and puffed and started moving back. While she was at it, she accidentally elbowed me. Now I am a taller woman and her elbow hit my hip, which hurt, which in turn got me angry at the audacity. I stared at her, expecting an apology. She said nothing for good 10 seconds while I kept staring at her, and she finally said a barely audible, "Sry." After that, she kept standing directly behind me. That's not where she is supposed to stand. She is supposed to stand all the way back, behind the group of kids behind me. There are about 30 kids there who I wouldn't expect to stand up for themselves. So I stare at her and tell her to the back behind the kids. She hated that, but at this point I was loud enough to be socially intimidating. This is a culture of saving face and probably also physically intimidating, as she is half my size, so she moved behind the kids. I got on the ride with most of the kids while she was waiting at the back with a few of the remaining kids and whoever queued up behind her. My hip hurts a bit to touch. Not a lot, but I bruise easily and I'm just mad at this persistent shitty attitude at this point. The ride ends where it starts. When we are done, rest of them are getting on. Where the upcoming riders are expected to store their possessions is also the side that we ourselves stored our possessions. So she comes over to our side to put her things exactly where we are at to pick up our things. It is crowded and unorderly due to excitement and general chaotic behavior of the kids. That's where the pettiness got the best of me, and I took advantage of the crowd to take a step and trip her inconspicuously. She tripped and hit her face on one of the open lid of the metal lockers and bounced off that to fall to the ground. Kids stepped on her hands. I walked out beside her while she was down. It was fun.